Hello and welcome to my channel, She Speaks Too. Today we're going to be reviewing I May Destroy You, episode 11. This episode had two of the male characters making amends. We had Kwame trying to make amends to Nullifer. We had, what's his name, Zane or Della trying to make amends to Arabella. So the episode opens with Arabella, Terry, and Kwame in an exercise class. Kwame is teaching aerobics. They're exercising. Arabella looks really good. They're working out. They take a break. Arabella is immersed in her book, The Sundial. Kwame is looking at his phone. He gets a text from Tyrone, the guy that he is dating. Tyrone is asking him if he wants to go kayaking, and you see this tortured look on Kwame's face, like he's so conflicted. You would have thought that the guy asked him for his kidney or asked him to marry him. Then you see Terry looking at her phone, and she has a panic look on her face. So everyone is immediately concerned. Terry, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she could barely get the words out. You know, she got the job. So everyone starts screaming. She's like, I got the job. And I was genuinely happy for Terry, but then I wondered, is this her first acting job? Or, you know, because we don't see a lot of her. We don't know how Terry makes her money. And she was so excited but panicked at the same time. So I wondered if if this was her first audition or rehearsal that she's ever gotten a call back to say that she had the part. And so they cut to that. They're at Arabella's house. Ben, of course, is gardening. He's working. Terry is talking to Kwame. Kwame is talking about Tyrone. Tyrone is, he's saying he's a nice guy, but have you ever been with someone that's so nice that you started trying to copy them? And Ben says, well, you are a nice guy. And Kwame said something so absolutely funny. He says, I reject that. I'm not nice. I'm nice to you. I'm nice to her, pointing to Terry, but I'm not just nice to people I don't know. And he said, have you ever been with someone that was the right person, but you were not right yet enough to be with them? And he said, what do you do with that? And Ben said, that you try to make yourself right in order to stay with them. I said, look at Ben giving advice. I love Ben. And Kwame took that in. Arabella is in the bathroom. Terry is so invasive. She goes in Arabella's room. The trash bags are still there on the side of the bed. She opens the bathroom door. She totally expects Arabella to be in the bathroom, but still does not. Just opens the door. Arabella is sitting on the toilet, and she says, you know, give me a second. Kwame looks at her, and then they close the door. I said, no privacy, but Arabella didn't even act like she was surprised or fazed that they saw her sitting on the toilet. So Arabella comes out of the bathroom, and she tells Terry is there, and she says, this was such a good book, and she gives it to Ben, and Ben was like, I told you so. So it looks like Ben was the one who gave her the book to read in the first place. And she was like, I have to meet this author. Her name is Della, and her name rhymes with my name. We're both Londoners. We both write for Henny House. How is it that we've never met and we're so far on the opposite side of the spectrum, success and failure? So Ben was like, well, just ask your publisher to meet her. And Arabella's like, I can't do that, because if I ask, or if I make myself known, they will start asking me questions about my book. So she's like, let me record a video. So of course Terry was like, being an actress who has a job, Terry is extra, I should be the one to help. So Arabella records a simple enough message. Hi, I'm Arabella. I like your work. I would love to meet to talk about women issues or things like that. And Terry said, cut. Ben was recording, cut. This is too earnest. We need more. She puts a femme t-shirt on Arabella, Black Panther activist hat, sits her on the toilet. Arabella does a message kind of like, I couldn't even finish. I was on the loo and I just had to message you, something like that. And then they send a message, and they're waiting, and Arabella's like, wait a minute, let me check. And Arabella is blocked. So she's, you know, she's like, okay, well, the next step is to go to Susan Henny. So she goes to Susan Henny. She's riding up that elevator and gets in there, and Susie Henny has her petting her plants. And this is very reminiscent of when she was offering Arabella pomegranates and like take more. But now it's like, touch this plant, touch this one. This is my favorite. And then she says, I haven't had a break in 8 years. Arabella didn't know what to do with that. And she was like, I'm sorry. Touch this plant. This one is my favorite. And then she says, you know, we're descendants. You should grow flowers. You should look into that. Arabella says, I like it. I just have never done it. She's like, because we're descendants of trees. And Arabella says, that explains our melanin. And this is where Susie let her know that we are not the same black. There has been a class issue that has not been discussed between Arabella and Susie. I don't know if Arabella has never noticed that or pay attention, but Susie, this was where she drew the line. You've been to my office twice. You're not benefiting me. You're not benefiting my company. We are not the same. We're not going to share racial jokes because we are not the same black. So she says, because Arabella says that's where we get our, that would explain the melanin. Susie said, excuse me? Well, you know, the bark is brown, we're brown. She's like, what? And Arabella says, it's just a silly racial joke. And she said, where are you with your book? I don't have time for this. Where are you with your book? Arabella says, well, you know, kind of working on it. What's your word count? And she says, well, I can't answer that right now. And Arabella says, I would like to meet Della. And Susie says, no. And that was it. And so you're wondering, I thought she said no because she was done with Arabella, but there is more to it than that, and it unfolds throughout the episode. So Arabella leaves, and immediately she's called into her agent's office. It's Julian and the other lady, and Susie has immediately called them to drop Arabella. They're telling her that we're dropping you. You need to pay us back our when we forwarded the money to you, when we gave you your advance, you need to pay that back, and we're dropping you. So this is going to get a little complicated. And Arabella's just sitting there. So we cut to Arabella, and this scene was really funny. We cut to Arabella at Ego Death Bar, Ego Death Bar, sitting outside with Terry, and she is crying. And she's like, I've never been in so much debt in my life. And then Terry says, what are you going to do? Arabella says, I don't know, Terry. That's why I'm crying. And I said, you know, that one friend who you're trying to comfort, and you're just asking the question to ask. You don't know or care how they're going to pay it back. And then they have to be smart with you. She said, I don't know, Terry. That's why I'm crying. Terry's like, oh, okay, girl. You know, she was just rubbing her. She said, all right, girl. Then there is a waiter that Terry likes. So she says, I'll give you, text this number so I'll have your number. And so all of a sudden Arabella gets a message from Della Croy Dickey, and Terry was like, oh yeah, you know, they're excited. And the waiter that Terry likes leaves, and he says, I'm leaving. And Terry's like, I gotta go, that's my man. So she leaves, and Arabella's waiting for Della to come. And she looks up, and it's Zane. And it's one of those things where you speak to the person before you even know. Have you ever seen someone that you intend not to speak to ever again, but you have such good manners? This happens to me all the time. You have such good manners, you find yourself speaking before you even, because really Arabella was speaking to the man who sexually assaulted her. But she's like, oh, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. And those words probably come out before you can even think about it. And so she's like, I'm waiting. He says, how have you been? She says, good, living my best life, best I've been ever. And she says, I'm meeting someone. And Zane says, hi. And then when it hit her, she was like, oh my gosh. So it turns out not only did Susie Henney keep Zane, but she kept him, knowing what he did to Arabella, had him write a book, had him write under a ghost writer name, and then, not a ghost writers who writes for someone else, a pseudonym, had him write under that, and to make money. So he still made money. But the Zane that we see now is not as egotistic. He's a little haggard looking. He's more humble. He's not the same. Imagine being so talented that you can write a book, but you have to write it under something else. You never get the acknowledgement, and I don't know how long you'll have to do that. Imagine whoever you like. Imagine Beyonce releasing songs, but it's released under another name, and she never gets the credit. That's a blow to your ego. And so Arabella says, well, who knows about this? And he says, my mom in Henny House. And she says, does Susie know? And he said, she picked the name. So that tells you the type of person. Susie may look like you, Arabella, but she is not like you. She's corporate. She needs to make a profit off of you. She doesn't care about you as a person. She doesn't care about you as a black woman. When Arabella had asked Susie if someone else could read for her at that program they were having, Susie said, well, is she black? Arabella said yes. And Susie was only concerned that we filled the void of you not reading with another black person so we can look more diverse. But she's not interested. She's not interested. And so Arabella tells Zane that I have cleaned under my bed. I have been under my bed, meaning I've been to the darkness. I'm not afraid of you. I have explored everything that has hurt me. So don't come here with that mess. And Zane was like, I'm just here to help. And, Zane went to a very prestigious university, Cambridge, and Arabella did not. Her writing primarily came from being on Twitter, her musings, people liked it, and then she wrote something about millennials, things that irritate them, but she has never written a structured book, and I think that's why she's been... Zane has emailed her a diagram, and he's also brought it, and the diagram shows the structure of a book, how you have to have the plot, the different characters and antagonists, things that she probably hasn't had to learn formally. So her and Zane start working on these things together. And as they start working on them, she says, can you go back to my apartment? So they go back to her apartment and Zane is just helping her. They're putting sticky notes on the wall. She's just writing after writing. All the pieces are coming together, working with him. And towards the end, when she no longer needs him, she says, thank you, Zane. He says, okay, well, I'm going to be going home now. And then she says, on your way out, can you take those bags? So this is, to me, symbolic of her. She's done with him. She doesn't need him. Take the trash out when you go to. Take everything that I don't need, that doesn't serve a purpose anymore. Take that with you. So he takes that, and as he's leaving, now she says, thank you, Della. So Della helped her, not Zane. Thank you, Della. So Zane, I think, did this because he took a big risk helping Arabella. She could out him, but he took a risk because something in him knew that was the right thing to do, that he needed to make amends. We see Kwame on a date, well, not a date, having a meeting at a restaurant with Nullifer. So Kwame is sitting first. She shows up and he orders food. She orders her food and she says, if you hadn't have come into my apartment under false pretenses, you wouldn't have heard the offensive things that you may have heard. And that is her way of trying to let him know that it's your fault that I even said those things about gay people. And then he says, I want to apologize to you. My experiment was to be with a one-night stand with a woman, to experiment. And then you happen to be the one that I picked. And when we started talking, sharing things, I should have ended it there and not continued. And I'm sorry. So Kwame is expecting, because of what Ben told him to be a good person or a nice person, I think that kind of stuck with him, and he knew there was somebody he needed to make amends with. So thinking that he was going to apologize to her and then that she was just going to accept. So that's the thing with an apology. You can apologize, but the other person doesn't have to accept. And of course, we see that Nullifer did not accept his apology. In fact, it's one of those things, has someone ever done something to you and and you were okay with it, you were pissed off at them, but you were okay, you were living life, and then they called you to apologize, and that made you even more mad. So I feel like Kwame's apology just made her, just enraged her. She said that, you've done it once, basically what's stopping you from doing it again, but what can you do? Criminals and something else she called him, some of them never get caught, basically calling predators and criminals never get caught, so basically calling him that. She walks out and he says, I'll cancel your dinner. She says, you're canceled, and then keeps going. So she is still pissed. Then we cut to Terry on her date with Kai. She's sitting down, they're eating, and Kai says, he orders his food, she orders her food. The waitress or waiter comes up and says, you know, I really like your work. And Terry, of course, being extra, what do you do as an actress? I would like to know who I'm sitting with. And he says, you know, and she says, oh, you're being secretive. I'll be right back. Goes to the restroom, Googles him, finds out that he's a trance musician, like a trance artist. So she comes back to the table, kind of uncomfortable. He says, should I get the check? And she said, no, if I leave now, people will think I'm transphobic, and I don't want that to be the case. So she kind of loosens up a little. They start talking. He calls her a prude, and she says, I can't be a prude. I've had a threesome. She recalls the events of the threesome. And he said, those men, in which I thought that at the end of the episode 2, when she looked out the window and she saw them talking, that she knew. I don't know if she's just kind of blocking that out, but I felt like the sadness on her face after she saw those 2 men after the threesome leave revealed that she knew. How maybe she's just trying to act like it was maybe in order to make herself feel good, she's making it seem like it was just this like thing that she did, and she had fun and she enjoyed it, so she doesn't have to realize that she was made a fool out of. Well, Kai tells her, I fully think that these guys knew each other. And then she says, you know what, there was something funny about the way they left together. And she says, you know, it happened so long ago, but he says it still stings, doesn't it? And you can tell by her face that it does. Arabella just keeps writing and writing and writing, and it's about her experience. So at one, she's eating, she's brushing her teeth, she's living in this writing. It's all around her. At one point, we even see her in a fetal position, just I guess having to recall all these things that have happened to her. So she goes outside. Men is, of course, working on his plans, and he says, you're going to another meeting at Ego Death? And she says, yes, you know, you're welcome to join me. And he says, you know, I don't like to get out that much. And she says, well, the offer still stands if you want to come and join me. And so then we see that Ben is lonely. Now that I've noticed it, he's never in the inner circle of anything. He's always on the peripheral. Maybe he's always been a loner, but he starts listening to this podcast about loneliness, and I think we've all been there, just not really connecting. He gives good advice. He seems really grounded, but he is lonely. He's listening to a podcast. So Arabella returns to Ego Death Bar, and Kai walks in. Kai walks with Terry, who sits by Arabella, and Arabella says, you doing okay? She says, yeah, we're going steady now. So apparently Terry has accepted Kai for who he is, or maybe she wants to explore. And all of a sudden, a black guy walks in, and Arabella starts watching, and then this is when the heartbreaking memories come back. It was hard for myself to watch, to know how cruel people are, to take advantage of someone in their weakest moment, especially that cab scene when she could barely hold her head up, and this guy just has his arm around her, and the friend is sitting there fully knowing what they're going to do to her. This was a hard, triggering scene to watch. So she looks in the bar, and then it all starts coming back to her, and I don't know. So it all starts coming back to her. What happened was that night that she went out, she was given the drink. There was even a freeze frame of the white guy looking at her, and she is stumbling out of the bar. She goes to the ATM. There's a homeless guy or someone saying they just need help to get to the shelter. Then you hear someone say, get in the cab with us. So she gets in the cab, and before she even leaves Ego Death, as she's being taken out, you can see the doorman looking at this white guy walking her out, looking kind of like, is this right? Never steps in to say anything. Is she okay? Do we need to call an ambulance? Just, he looks like he's concerned, still doesn't do anything. Then she's in the cab. I hate that scene. He has his arm around her, and usually when someone has their arm around you, it's a sign of compassion, but we know now that it's nothing but evil. The black guy is sitting there on the other side. They take her to another bar. It looks like he pays the doorman, and he's done this before. They go straight down to the bathroom, takes her in the bathroom. The other guy is the watch guy. and he assaults her there. You can see where she hits her head. And this was it was so graphic, even without showing the assault. This was so graphic. It was such a powerful scene. I don't think she could have done it any better. And so that is my review. So in this episode, we see the two male characters trying to make amends. We see that Kwame going to an art gallery with Tyrone. Nullifer is still mad. That apology made her, incensed her. So Nullifer is still mad. She sends him a text and says, you're an effing pig. And then, but he's with Tyrone. Then we see Zane in his own way trying to make amends for what he has done. His life will never be the same. Even years from now, people will remember him for what he's done. He's having to write under an assumed name now, but you still see him trying to make amends for hurting Arabella, and his amends is helping her to write this book. So her writer's block is gone. She has gotten rid of the trash in the room, and that's where we're at. So if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe. I look forward to the comments. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'm trying to grow this YouTube channel, and I need your help. Thank you so much.